We're going to talk about some high school action. I want to thank the New Senda Credit Union for sponsoring the show each week, and another big player on the show. From nmpreps.com, we say good morning to Kyle Henderson. Good morning, Kyle.
Hey, Gary, what's going on? I'm in Socorro, New Mexico last night. I watched Alamogordo defeat Mayfield. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, that was my first thing. The Alamogordo Tigers finally have a signature win after beating Valencia, Los Lunas, Highland. You and I and Kelly could beat them. Then last night they played Mayfield without Isaac Vance, pulling off a 46-28 victory. They've got Gadsden and Deming in the wings. They're going to be 6-0 before they face Artesia for another test. Tell me about Alamogordo.
Alamogordo last night, the energy was buzzing. Last night was completely electric. Alamogordo started off the game with a 65-yard touchdown and never really looked back. I know Isaac Vance from Mayfield didn't play, but I think if he played, it wouldn't have made a difference. Alamogordo gave it to Mayfield all night long. They led 27-7 at the halftime break, pulled away late in the game. Kyle Hooper, who's a junior quarterback, threw for 408 yards. 4 touchdowns. Julian Segura, who I think is one of the top receivers along with Marcus Williams of Cleveland, hauled in 2 fantastic touchdowns, and Hunter Graham, their running back, ran for over 140. Alamogordo now 4-0 on fire. Big time win last night. First time since 1993 they beat the Mayfield Trojans. You know what? In 1993, I was in 3rd grade.
I was just moving into my house in the Heights. What do opponents say about Alamogordo if you've talked to any coaches? Or what are they really good at? Are they running an option? Are they a spread offense? Tell us about them, Kyle.
They're a spread set team, so they're going to go all the time. And they spread it out wide, and they have some fantastic wide receivers. As I mentioned, Julian Segura, they have another slot by the name of Alex Ramirez, and he didn't actually play last night. He's one of their top players. Didn't play last night, but they have another player by the name of Marcelo Benitez who can really go. They're extremely fast, really physical on defense. I talked to some Mayfield coaches after the game. They were like, you know what? That's a very physical football team. They hit us in the mouth. And, Alamogordo definitely with a statement win last night. I think it's a big upset, obviously. I mean, they haven't won in decades, and last night they certainly proved that they're a contender, and I was there firsthand. I mean, they're the real deal. Alamogordo did a great job. Dale Hooper now in his 3rd year at Alamogordo went 1-9 his first year, 5-5 last year, now 4-0 with a chance to set up that big-time matchup against Artesia in a couple weeks. Alamogordo red hot.
Yeah, is Hooper a threat to run? And I'm talking about the quarterback, not the coach.
Not necessarily, although he did have a Johnny Manziel-style run in the 4th quarter, but he's more of a, pocket passer. He has a great arm. I mean, he's a junior quarterback, and last year he threw for 2,500 yards. This year he's over 1,000 yards, and he's red hot. And what I like about him is he has a lot of confidence in himself. You talk to him, and you can tell he's an alpha male. He really wants the spotlight. He wants to be the guy that shines, and he totally tore it up last night on a big stage, 408 yards against the Mayfield Trojans. Pretty impressive.
Well, answer me this. I'm looking at this, the last paragraph in the Albuquerque Journal today. It's a 14-7 game. Mayfield stuffed on 4th and goal at the 1. Alamogordo then goes on a 99-yard scoring drive to take a 21-7 lead. Was that basically the turning point?
I think so. I mean, they stuffed them. They had a ton of momentum from the crowd. I mean, it was absolutely packed. And if you've ever been to Alamogordo's football stadium, it's wonderful. I mean, it's a great setup. There was tons of people. So they stop them on 4th and 1, and then they drive 99 yards down the field. They punch it in with a 100-gram touchdown run. That's what makes them so dangerous. Their defense is pretty salty, but on offense, they can spread you out. They have some dangerous wide receivers. But the guy that we need to talk about is Hunter Graham, 195 pounds. He runs like a bowling ball. He's extremely fast. He punched it in. They go up 21-7. Then they went up 27-7. They actually scored to make it 34-7 before halftime, but a penalty was called, a holding call, which negated the touchdown. So Alamogordo, I mean, they had control of the entire game. I've never seen Mayfield get it handed to them. Maybe back in 2010 when LaCueva beat them, but besides that, I mean, it's the Mayfield Trojans. That was a big deal.
Well, 1 week after the Bradley Bowl, where Mike Bradley beat his brother Gary Bradley when Mayfield beat Carlsbad. Both Bradley brothers lost last night because Carlsbad still win this. But I want to go back to this last time Mayfield lost to Alamogordo in 1993. They were both in District 3-4A at the time. The year before that, 92, Mayfield beat Alamogordo 14-6. But in back-to-back years, 1990, Alamogordo throttled Mayfield 39 29-0, and the next year it was 23-19 Alamogordo. So Alamogordo has had some success, but you got to go back 20-plus years to see it. So Alamogordo, the real deal now. Do you make them your number one team? It's going to be tough to put them ahead of Cleveland, but what's the NMPrep.com rankings look like?
Well, I asked our fan base, and if you want to check out those rankings, you can jump in the conversation at NMPreps.com. I think everybody's still going to have Cleveland as the number one. I mean, last night they defeated Clovis 50-20 in Clovis at Leon Williams. That's a big-time win. I mean, Clovis was 3-0 on the season. But then who's number two? Is it Eldorado, who beat Volcano Vista, very good Volcano Vista last night, 38-21? Is it Las Cruces, who beat Rio Rancho 34-31? Or is it Alamogordo, who beat our previously ranked number two, the Mayfield Trojans, 46-28? I mean, I think Alamogordo has proved a lot last night, and they certainly could be number two from our Monday morning ranking.
That's very possible. I still like Eldorado up there. Charlie's got them playing real well. They've got one signature win, let's say, over Volcano Vista. Mayfield now has one. Las Cruces, a good game last night. I watched it on the Las Cruces Public Schools station, saw almost every play. And Cameron Miller he's not the best quarterback I've seen. He still makes some mistakes. He tries to run sometimes when there's no openings. He does fumble snaps and all that. But when it came to the old proverbial nut-cutting time, he got it done. Brandon Baeza is a great player, and they brought in Peyton Ball. What a great outing for him. 2 carries, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Peyton Ball and Brandon Baeza, both of Las Cruces, they're both sophomores. A lot of people don't know that Las Cruces is very young. Brandon Baeza actually started as a freshman last year for Las Cruces Bulldogs. He's a fantastic player, probably the next big-time name out of Las Cruces High School. As you mentioned, Cameron Miller. The thing about Cameron Miller, I mean, he has so much poise during crunch time. I think he gets that obviously from his father. He's a winner. He's a proven leader, 3-year starting quarterback at Las Cruces. Big win over Rio Rancho last night. It was tight. I heard it was a flag-heavy game, but Las Cruces now 3-1, setting up a great matchup next week with Centennial, who's undefeated. That game's Friday night at the Field of Dreams. Eldorado, as you mentioned, defeated Volcano Vista 38-21. That sets up a big-time matchup Saturday in Las Cruces against the Mayfield Trojans. Charlie Dotson 4-0, and the Eldorado Eagles flying into Las Cruces, take on Mayfield 3-1, big-time matchups in Las Cruces.
Yeah, I think we got to give Cruces more credit because that loss they have was actually to Mother Nature because they were playing a game in the third quarter where Lightning forced postponement of that game, actually cancellation of the game right there, so they were behind. Or if they were ahead at the time, then the other team would have said, well, geez, we didn't get a chance to win. That's true. Mother Nature wins that one. But Baeza, sophomore, as you said, he plays offense, he plays defense, he plays special teams. Right now, he's my player of the year. He gets it done in all 3 phases of the game.
Brandon Baeza, as you mentioned, a standout player. Let's talk about some other guys. I'll just mention some top performers last night. Artesia's Justin Hotling had another big night, throwing for 5 touchdowns, 300 yards, completely shine. As I mentioned, Kyle Hooper, the quarterback from Alamogordo, threw for 408 yards and accounted for 4 touchdowns. Plenty of standouts across the state. Josh Foley from Rio Rancho ran for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns against Las Cruces. So I love the big-time Friday night performers. I mean, there's always guys putting up some big-time numbers, and we recap all those top performers on NFTuff.com, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I talked to David Williams, he's the next guest, David Howes, the Rio Rancho coach. He was a little bit miffed there. Late in the game, 2 plays before a Hail Mary pass fell incomplete in the end zone. Rio Rancho was called for offensive pass interference in the end zone. The broadcasters on that the ticket down there in Las Cruces, I was listening to their broadcast while watching the video on Las Cruces Public TV. They both thought it should have been a defensive play, and because that 15 yards was marched off, it took the Rams out of field goal position. They lost 34-31. Doing the math, a John Finnegan field goal, and he's hit from 35 or so yards this year, would have tied the game. But, of course, the officiating sometimes doesn't go in your favor. Rams come back up I-25 with their second loss of the season.
Rio Rancho has beaten Las Cruces the last 4 to 6 times. I mean, going into that game last night, Coach Howes had Coach Miller's number, and I don't think Las Cruces or Rio Rancho are as good as they've been in the past, but they're program good, meaning Las Cruces is always going to be good. Rio Rancho is always going to be good. And I don't think those teams, as I mentioned, are as good as they've been in the past, but they're still really good. I mean, Rio Rancho going down to Las Cruces, only losing by 3 points, I think that says a lot about, their poise, and they're junior heavy. I mean, they have some standout juniors, so Rio Rancho is going to be very good next year. Tough loss to Las Cruces. I don't think it hurts them too much. Rio Rancho is going to be just fine.
I'm sure NMPreps.com had this. Grant Herman's verbal for Iowa State. Your comments?
Yeah, he called me the other night and told me it was Iowa State, and I was really excited to hear that. I mean, he told me that it came down to watching a TV game. Actually, he watched Iowa State on TV. He saw 60,000 fans in Ames, Iowa. Said that's the place needs to be. And one thing I want to really highlight about Grant, and you can count on that, Gary, as well, is that I mean, he's someone that you would want your son to be like. I mean, in terms of character, how he handles himself. I mean, what a great young man. He's actually an Eagle Scout. I mean, everything, you'd want your son to be Grant Herman's, and Iowa State is getting a fantastic individual. I mean, credit to him. And, of course, Henry Hattis a couple weeks ago committed to Stanford. So big-time guys out in Rio Rancho, both linemen, 6'7", 265. Those guys are next-level guys.
Well, they're great kids. They could be somebody else's. I can't afford the food bill.
Yeah, seriously. And the next one we got is Teton Saltis out of Valley. I assume he's probably going to commit to Oregon probably in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and Hattis to Stanford, Herman's to Iowa State, and Saltis up in the air. We'll hear about that soon from Kyle Henderson, who's my first quarter guest. Thanks for joining us, Kyle. Good comments on the Dale Hooper-led Alamogordo Tigers and his son. Great game for Alamogordo. They beat Mayfield. And we'll talk to you next week. What game are you going to be at? What's the big game for you next week, Kyle?
Next week, I'll probably be in Las Cruces. I mean, got Las Cruces, Centennial, Eldorado, Mayfield. So count me in Las Cruces.